One of the reasons why I actually created this podcast and this entire company is based around my own expertise as a leader running an agency. I went to therapy one day and I learned that all of the things that I was doing within the workplace was a manifestation of all the trauma that I went through.
I'm coming up on the 3rd-year anniversary of my suicide attempt. I was back at work 2 days later and did not tell anyone. The beauty of it was that I went to the hospital a few days later. It led me to discover that I have a condition called complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I made a very difficult decision to actually stop working.
Your team can show up for you in so many different ways. You just have to ask. And that's great modeling, because then they can go into their team and say when they need a moment. Everyone has something. When you're a leader, you get to see the most vulnerable sides of people, more than their family knows at times. And what do you do with that information? How do you own that without absorbing it?
Type A leaders, and I'm one of them, have a tendency to want to get a lot of things done. You realize the potential of the organization is, and patients are relying upon it. We'd get a lot of things done, therefore, we would have a lot of initiatives. The capacity of the organization to execute successfully on X number of initiatives was simply not possible.
Just focus on why I started building the studios. It's to teach business mindset to massage therapists, and I just have to remember that because there's people that will come in, love the studio, and give a bunch of ideas. And I need to step away from being not a people pleaser, but someone that's accommodating. Stay focused on that, take everything that I'm learning. And something that I've always worked with in my own private practice and in my own world and what we're applying at the studios is knowledge, application, results.
I want to know, what's one mistake that was very costly to you as a CEO, and what did you do about it?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. And by the way, what an incredible panel. I was listening, and you talk about therapy. That was kind of a therapy session for me because everything that was discussed on that panel resonated with some aspects of my leadership journey. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Kempinski, recently retired as the president and CEO of Children's Mercy for 7 years, and I completed a 42-year career in healthcare leadership. So I think I've seen it and done it all. And I think the first thing we have to say is that leadership is a very, very challenging profession. It is tough to be a leader because you are responsible for the lives of people in some cases. You're responsible for the well-being of a workforce, in our case, 9,000 people. And you need to ensure that the culture that's created in the organization is channeling the best and safest possible care to, in our cases, kids and families. And I made a lot of mistakes as a leader in 42 years. In fact, I used to make mistakes every single day. And I would always say, thank God my mistakes were not in the operating room. But I was making them all the time. And I would say that when I reflect back on the mistakes and the failures of my leadership, it was a failure to listen. I evolved as a leader thinking what they taught us in graduate school, that we as leaders were taught to go in, assess a problem, come up with a way of fixing it, and then make the fix. Well, the reality is I have no business going to a patient care unit and telling a nurse or a respiratory therapist what they should do to fix a problem. My job is to be a coach and a mentor and somebody who can facilitate how others' understanding of the failed systems and processes they work within, they can be the change agents and they can be the improvement specialists in those environments. And it was when I finally learned that here comes the suit telling us what he thinks should be done was a fatal flaw to somebody who's going to come in, ask curious questions, and ensure that I was able to provide the support and the facilitation to allow them to be problem solvers, empower them, give them the resources that they need, and be more of an active listener than doing all the talking and thinking you're the smartest person in the room.
Follow that up. Amber Manning, I'm the CEO of the Miller Group. We're an insurance broker. I make mistakes all day long. I think the biggest one, though, is when I'm not self-aware or I have a blind spot. So you're not able to show up how you need to and encourage your team or be there for your team when you are seeing something through a lens. So what is that lens? And being honest with yourself, and then working through that so that you can bring out the best solution and empower that team member, and then they can ripple that through your whole organization.
Seth Deutsch, CEO of Sampson Partners Group. Yeah, two things come to mind. I think that, again, I still, as we all do, fail every day, but I have a way of thinking about failure, and it comes from, I think, my athletic upbringing and where I started my career as a coach. And one of the things that I say to executives is, tell me the last time because I played at men's college Division I basketball, there was an undefeated team that won the national championship. I think it was 1976. It's a long time. And so it's really, how do we take the failure and the losing, and how do we learn from it, right? In athletics, we go and we study game film and we improve. And so, and you're also not taking enough chances if you're not failing. So if we learn to treat it as learning, but we have to create an environment where that's allowed. And most corporations, because they're just driven by predictability of cash flow, right? Really, organizations, especially large ones, really aren't driven to allow this, and it's not encouraged. And failure, right, is really not supported and nurtured in organizations. They're really not designed for it. That's why a lot of the innovation happens in startups, not within corporations. But anyway, so I try to impart that. And I would say the other thing, when I think the first time I ran a business, I was 30. And back in those days, I felt the need to jump in, make my mark, prove myself, and I would start to change things way too soon. And I learned this little thing back in the day it actually comes from the ITW business system. It's not patriotic, but it's USA. And it stands for understand. So imagine a big U, as big as this room, and then a gigantic S, just slightly smaller, and then a tiny, tiny A at the end. Understand, simplify, then take action or automate. And I work in a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and I'm talking to executives all the time about their first time you've acquired a business. Along the way, it's almost like an arranged marriage or a shotgun wedding. You only have a certain amount of time to truly understand each other. You need to then take your time to understand what you've actually bought, understand what you've actually inherited as a manager or a leader. Really understand those cultural underpinnings, understand how the business operates, and then in the first things that you do, simplify the work and actually make the environment better. This is what enables you to build trust, and then you can start to take bigger actions to move the organization forward. So people need to slow down, especially for first-time leaders.
My name is Celeste Aron. I'm the owner of my massage studios, where I help massage therapists grow their business skills and their client base. And a mistake that I've made is trying to run a business with how I want to do things, how I do things, this is how I do them. This is I. So when it becomes very people start losing. I've learned from my first go around in my first business, I learned that they lose interest and they kind of leave you alone. So with this new business, what I'm doing is stepping away from that I and how I want things to be done, or how I run my clients or my business, and just letting them run clients and business how they want, and their schedule how they want. And all I'm doing is giving guidelines and lessons that I learned, and the mistakes that I made, helping them not make those, so it's not so costly for them financially and emotionally. And so it's a lot like parenting. We tell our kids, hey, I know you really want to do this and you want to try this, but trust me, I made that mistake, I made that choice. So, and I know it does fall into the I, but it's more of you let go. You've given the information, you've given the warning, and then after that, you let go, you let them take it, or learn the hard way, like I did the first go around. But that's what the first mistake that I made in my start of leadership was I.
Yeah, thank you for that, by the way. And just a heads up, everyone on this table today, they were already in season 1. And the way that it works is the top 5 guests that with the most listened will be on the roundtable with me on a live podcast. And we're missing one person. Unfortunately, she had a stroke literally a week before. And she sent me a text message and told me to just talk to you guys. I think I memorized it, but my phone is dead. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that I can just share what she shared. And she wanted to get your take, everyone on the table. And her name is Meredith Rose. She's the CEO of Cornerstones of Care. And one of the things that she did after her stroke, she called me and she was like, I'm so sorry, I can't make it, I need to heal. And she was like, I feel so much FOMO right now. And I told her, you know what, don't worry about FOMO, just think of JOMO, which is something I got from another leader that I heard on the podcast, which means the joy of missing out. And she want to take all of your take. She's like the sweetest person. I wish she was here because I think she would have done such a good job just contributing to all the conversation. But I want to know, was there a time in your career as a leader where you had, like a physical disability where, you should probably stay home, but you show up anyway? Because she was going to show up. And I was like, no, you're going to stay home. I want to hear from you guys personally, and you can feel free to jump in if you have a thought that you want to add. What's your take on just the fear of missing out as a leader? Because this is something that I struggle a lot. I want to be there. I want to be present. This is the first time I've done an event where I'm not nagging the camera guys. But I just trust them that they're doing what they're doing, and I just let them be. And we can start with you first, and then we can make a round.
In my leadership role, no. By the time I made it, which my leadership role took place, I would say probably the past 3 years. But by that time, I had already learned to go ahead and give my body a rest. I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease a few years ago, so I did push myself to show up for my clients. I don't know if that's a thing, but I knew I wasn't performing the best and I was doing them a disservice, but until I got the answers as to what it was. But it's almost like when you get the answer of what's wrong, then you know how to deal with it and fix it. And then you understand, okay, it's not all in my head, so I can take the time to rest. So to answer your questions, I think I'm in a good place in my life where I learned that lesson as an employee, and I told myself that's probably not the best thing to implement now that I'm in a new role of leadership. So I'm working really hard on building a team that I can trust and communicate with them. Hey, and I'm lucky enough to be in the healthcare industry where everyone understands, nope, go home, take the day off, we'll handle it and do all that. So I did push myself a few times, but I showed up not the best and I wasn't proud of my work. And then I would go home and feel even more exhausted and prolong that sickness. So I've definitely learned to just take the 2, 3, 4 days that I need and then come back and make up the time.
I mean, I'll probably take a whole month, but that's me. And Seth?
Well, I think you probably did this as well, but I played injured as an athlete way too often. And actually, there's someone in the audience here tonight, Bobby, who knows I am pushing myself a little bit too hard. Right now, I'm violating some of the boundaries that have been well established for me in terms of getting my rest cycles, which I didn't used to do. But yeah, I think for me, I'm coming up on the 3rd year anniversary of my suicide attempt, which was November 21st. It'll be 3 years on November 21st. I was back at work 2 days later and did not tell anyone. And didn't tell my wife. And so for me, that was an extreme example of showing up hurt. And it took me, but what was the beauty of it was that I went to the hospital a few days later, reported this, and started to discuss with the doctors things I had never talked about my entire life to anyone. And that led me to No one was surprised that I'm ADHD, but it led me to discover that I have a condition called complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I made a very difficult decision to actually stop working about 2 months later, and went through, a journey of healing. And I was really blessed. I'm on a number of boards here in Kansas City, and flew down before starting my treatment. Spoke to one of the chairman of one of the boards I'm on, saying I needed to resign, and they would not accept my resignation. Actually, at the time when I was working full time, then I was also on 5 outside boards, and I went to resign from all of the boards, and every single person rejected my resignation and said they just cared about me as a person, and if I was able to deliver the type of value and live the type of life that I was living unhealed, that if I never came back, that was fine. But they were just excited that I was going to get help, and they were excited to see what type of leader I would be on the other side.
Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. So I don't have one thing. I have a series of things that pop into my mind. I have 3 autoimmune diseases. I have 3 beautiful adopted kids. We tried to adopt a 4th kid, and it was a failed adoption during the pandemic, and I had a very hard time with that. But, I owned what I could. You're not always aware of everything you're going through at the time, but your team can show up for you in so many different ways. You just have to ask, and that's great modeling, because then they can go into their team and say when they need a moment. So if I can own when I'm struggling, then I hope others can, because everyone has something. When you're a leader, you get to see the most vulnerable sides of people. You know more than their family knows at times, and what do you do with that information? How do you own that without absorbing it, right? We talk about that a lot at work, and we talked about it a minute ago. How do we not absorb the feelings of our teammates but are compassionate? So I try and model. I have something coming up where I'm going to Mayo for 2 weeks to get some help for my autoimmune. I'm not really excited about telling everyone, and now I'm on a podcast telling everyone. So I have an email crafted to my team, and I'm trying to think of what message am I sending by saying that I'm doing this for myself, and saying that I'm doing it so I can be the best version of myself, so that I enable more people that don't have the access and resources I do, which I know I am lucky and blessed beyond means, that they can, in their own way, enable some success, and is there a way we can help them with it? So.
Yeah, first of all, incredible sharing, so thank you. It's an honor to be around the table with everyone. I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently. I've had my, share of, health issues that have taken me out of work, but I'll go in a different direction. 2 things. First of all, I think one of the things that we should all ask ourselves when we think about our roles as leaders, or whatever our role is in the organization, is when you are 6 feet under, what do you want your gravestone to say? And I asked myself that question a long time ago. And I know I have friends and colleagues who answer that question immediately by saying, well, they were the greatest executive, and their companies excelled, blah, blah, blah. I answered the question differently, and it starts with, I was a great husband, I was a great father, I was a faithful servant, I was a great community steward, and oh, by the way, I was okay at my job. And I think if you ask yourselves, what are your priorities in life, it begins to form a foundation for how you lead and how you actually act as a human being, not just as a leader. The second thing is, I went through a program back in 2003 called the Corporate Athlete. This will resonate with you, Seth, because it was a program started by 2 professional tennis players. And they realized they were working with elite professional athletes, trying to take them from being high performers to championship level. And they realized that the behaviors and the attributes of this program were applicable to executives and leaders and managers as well. It's all about ritualizing great behaviors. There's a lot to it, but the most important thing I learned is that you cannot just exert without recovery. If a professional athlete does nothing but exert, eventually they are going to fail in their performance because their muscles are going to give out, their focus is going to give out. And it applies to all of us as individuals and leaders. We cannot exert without some form of recovery, and that is throughout the day. That might be taking a look out the window and enjoying the beautiful views and breathing deeply for a few minutes. It might be taking that vacation that you think you don't have time for, but you really need to take. It might be going and getting a massage because that is a way of helping your body to recover and rejuvenate. But this whole concept of exertion and recovery was a milestone moment in my leadership career and who I was as a person and as a husband, father, community steward, and faithful servant. So I think those are some things that we should all think about as well.
Wow. Well, thank you all for this, by the way.
Do you mind if I do
No, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Just a quick playoff, so we're not too formal. It's interesting because you mentioned breathing, and a friend of mine just took a job as a CFO at a roll-up in the sports industry. There's a lot of that happening. And I called Gary the other day just to check in, see how he's doing, see how the first week is going. He's like, there's a lot to do. I'm going to get through it. I'm taking some deep breaths. And I asked him, when you're taking those deep breaths, how are you breathing? And because if you are breathing in like that, that's a deep breath, but that's a shallow breath. And so what I was just reminding him is to breathe in, maybe on a 2 or 3 count, and when you breathe out, to breathe out longer than you're breathing in. And those of us in healthcare know this. Well, I'm not in healthcare, but that signals to your nervous system by breathing out longer than you're breathing in that you're safe. And so this is what really calms down the amygdala, calms down the nervous system. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with people, that when they're going and taking that deep breath, to be mindful of the neuroscience.
Yeah. So even for me, when I was going to therapy, like with my stutter, I learned that in the moment I find myself back into my childhood trauma, and then I would forget to breathe. And then I would just hold everything in, and nothing was coming out, and that was turning into anger. But I do want to acknowledge what everyone shared. Thank you all so much. And that's the reason why I asked that question, because the previous panel, we heard, the things that they shared, and I know as a leader, about 5 years ago, I had a massive project where, the expenses were around like $100K a day. It was insane. And everything fell apart. And it was like the moment things got canceled, I started getting invoices literally from everyone. And I was like, why is it that no one checking in and saying, how are you doing? I spent 7 months building something, and I had this incredible team. And luckily I had one person who actually bought me a burger. And he's like, Abraham, just go and eat this burger. And I'll never forget that. And for some reason, that moment stuck with me. And till today, I highly recommend this individual whenever someone say, hey, do you know a communications person? Because the fact that she took her time and she's like, hey, I'm going to get you a burger because I know how much you love burgers. Eat this, and I'm going to go take care of everything. But in the moment, and I remember, it feels like a movie. I was in a very dark room by myself, still have my fedora on because I got to keep that on. And I remember just thinking to myself, 7 months of doing this and everything just gone just like that. And I wasn't getting any hey, are you okay? And back then I had people from 7 different states that were flying in for it too. And I remember, someone called me and she's like, I'm so disappointed with you, And I was like, oh, okay, wow, okay, well, good to know. And it took me 3 years to heal from that. And that's why when I came back into the entrepreneurship space, I decided to build Heliona, something that could be my own co-pilot for healing while building a solution at the same time. Because at that moment, I was so afraid of what people are capable of doing. And I know I made a lot of mistakes myself, But my mistakes were my own, and everybody's mistakes was my own as well, which was also very expensive. So again, I appreciate everything that has been shared here, but I do want to know, have you ever find yourself in a situation similar to that where everything seemed hopeless, you were being blamed for everything, employees are not happy, you were violating every compliance book out there, and then at the same time, you were just hoping that one person can just see you as a human, not as a CEO, not as a president of a company, but as an employee of that company, and be like, hey, maybe you also need a ear, just say time to just sit down and have a genuine conversation, and anyone can jump in anytime.
So I take my role very seriously. Like, I take that responsibility and I accept whatever blame or whatever feelings comes my way, and I think that's part of my job, right? Oldest child, oldest grandchild, you name it, I just take that ownership and I run with it. I do find I have a YPO forum that is absolutely fantastic for me, a safe space where I can rely on people. And in that space, I get what I need. I don't need to expect things from people that need things from me. So I try not to filter and need something from someone that needs more from me, right? I'm trying to be that person for them, but I found a place where failure can be frustrating, failure can be all-consuming, but it's contained, so it's not contagious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we could talk about this for about 6 hours, but I think on an acute basis, I was telling somebody this earlier, every time I thought I was having a bad day or a bad moment, I would just walk the hallways, go to the patient care units, go to the departments, and interact with the people doing the real work. And in those moments, I would see patients and families walking the hallways, as I did you one time, and I would realize that my problems were nothing in comparison to what others were experiencing. And that bubble, that ego bubble, burst pretty quickly. So I think it instills a good dose of humility. I also think that you have to, especially as you evolve in leadership can become a lonely place. And you have to seek out colleagues who may not be in your organization, sometimes they're out of your organization, who maybe understand a little bit of what you're going through, and you can talk openly and freely about what you are experiencing with them. And the chances are the names and faces will change, but the stories will remain the same. It's really important, just from, I think, an emotional well-being standpoint, that you seek out those people. Because the reality is, when you're leading, in my case, an organization of 9,000 people and serving, just hundreds of thousands of patients, you are on all the time. You are constantly being watched. People see you, and they form perceptions about how you are, the decisions you're making, how you're feeling. So you have to seek out the ability to talk to people, and certainly for me, my wife has been my rock throughout this journey, my best friend,
Amen.
My guardian angel, without question. And you also have to seek out those people who understand the journey that you're going through. But then the final comment would be, I've always been very serious about realizing that the nurse on the unit, the financial counselor, the social worker, they have their stories too. So my bad days, they have bad days too. They are not just professionals, they are human beings. They have families, they have children to take care of, grandparents, brothers, sisters. So we're all on this planet together, and we all may have different titles, but those titles become leveled out pretty quickly through the experience of life.
Go next. I guess for me was the build out of the studio. It's an 1,800 square foot space, and we had to gut everything. Well, we didn't have to. We wanted to gut everything and remodel it. And we only had about 30 days before we were able to bring in massage therapists in to work out of the space. But all that to say is that all the decision making was on me. From the colors on the wall to the flooring to the cost of everything fell on me. So all the constant questions, and I was still seeing clients at the same time. So I was working on the table, shimmying over, helping gut the space, make the decisions, going home, making dinner. We got a new puppy, so it was constant. So anytime I had those moments where I just felt like I needed to have those breakdown moments, or I turned to two people. I turned to my husband for the redirection and the guidance. He was in the Marines, so he has a lot of leadership and understands. He was in war, so he understands that, okay, we got to get things done. So he would always guide me and redirect me and remind me of my strength. And then I would also turn to my cousin, who's like a sister. We grew up together. I grew up with boys, so we were the only two girls of a bunch of boys around us. And so she was like the heart behind everything. She understood my story, my struggles. So she was the softness I needed. And my husband has always been the strength to help guide me and strengthen me, where we do need a sense of love and affection and compassion coming from our partner. But when you put yourself I'm learning that when I put myself in a leadership role, there's only so much babying that can be done without it making us, I don't want to say weak, but without us making us too soft, and helping me remember, hey, you're stronger than this. You need to keep moving. Let me take your hand. But then I have my cousin who turns, and she's the one I turn to for more heartfelt softness. So I have those two people that I turn to, if that answers your question. That, yeah, when decisions are needed to be made and it's go, 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 those are the two people that I turn to.
I'm sitting here trying to think about how to answer your question. And I'll just provide this perspective, I think, which is that generally speaking, leaders, when there is success, get way too much credit for the success, right? And not only that, but then can we talk about things like luck and timing, right? And so I think that as a society, boy, do we love a scapegoat. And do we love a failure? And so I also think that we also internalize, and you have, I know you so well, and you have extreme ownership, right? But we love to point the finger, right? And in some cases, celebrate that failure. And then a lot of people just want to, they don't want to touch it. It's toxic. Get away from it. This is the human condition in business. Certainly, it's the human condition in our society. But I think that as a leader, you have to then also realize that you weren't the only one. Like, there were so many factors that go into failure, and to give yourself grace and look at now what you've done with your life and how you've rebuilt and the journey that you're on now. But we love to overly lay the blame on failure, and in many cases internalize it too much. We already talked about the success, but I think the other thing with success is to make sure that just watch hubris and watch ego and really check yourself. And we have a saying at our company, one of our maxims is, we do serious work, but we don't take ourselves seriously. And that's why, like, my company is literally named after my dog. And our logo is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. And I don't give a shit. That is who we are. So I cussed. I'm sorry.
Amber,
television.
Right. Oh, Amber, do you have anything to add? Because I saw you reacting.
I cuss a lot. And no one sees it coming.
Yeah, I probably would have been like, wait, Amber? But yeah, thank you all for that. Again, I asked this question with a little bit of ego, so thanks for the call out. I got 4 people calling me out, but it's okay. I'm here to learn. So again, another thing that I picked up, it's like surrounding yourself with the right person or the right group of people to always guide you or help you figure out if you find yourself wearing a fedora, I'm just playing. Sorry, I get called out of, sometimes when people are angry, they just call out the fedora, and somehow it gets to me very quickly. So maybe I have some work to do. I do want to switch a little bit, because the previous panel, that was a team throughout the conversation, which I now call the 3 C's. And I know I've talked to you all about the 3 C, but I would love to get your take here today. And the 3 C's are clarity, remember this, clarity, communication, and capacity. And I want to let's start with the first C and see if you have time to finish the second 2 C's, because I know we're running out of time here. So the first C is, and I can, I'm going to do my best to keep it as short as possible. So the first C is clarity. I had really bad communication skills back then when I was running a company about 7 years ago. And granted, I was very young when I had that company. That's probably is a big excuse, but again, here we are. I'm still learning. When it came to clarity, I had issues communicating with my team what is everyone's responsibility. I could not articulate clearly what is the marketing team's role in the company. And I remember it got so bad that I hired my team, my friends for my executive roles, and we would just hang out, and everyone would just do what was needed to be done. And the previous panel talked about this. They talked about how sometimes leaders can't even communicate what they want. And I want to get your take on the first C. How do you guys go about it in your own organization? And I want to start with you, Amber, because I know your company has a 90% retention rate, which is insane. So how were you able to get your people to stay with you at such a high rate in a time where anyone can go online and start a business?
I don't think there's one answer, right? There's not just one thing, this is going well, this is not. I was thinking of a bunch of different things when you were talking. So like my leadership team, we had worked on strategic goals, objective thing or subjective things. If these things happen, then X will happen. But we weren't tracking X. And X is actually what we cared about. So we unwound and kind of went back to the basics of these are the KPIs, the key performance metrics we care about. And it kind of changed the dynamic slightly on just, we're all running towards this, and just having a clear direction of where you're running. We have one of our leaders here today. We have unclarity all the time, so we have something right now where we're retooling a job function, and we don't know what we're going to do. And we're probably just going to say, hey, buckle in. It's going to be a little uncertain, and it's not because we're hiding anything, but we don't know which way we're going to do because we want to be good stewards of this business that support all of you and your families and the clients and the communities we serve. So we just own our what we're doing well and what we're not, and we have a monthly meeting where we go through all of our financials with all of our employees, and we talk about our wins, we talk about our losses, we talk about things we need to be focused on, and after every meeting there's confusion and people are fixate on different things, and it can't be avoided. So you almost have to embrace chaos when you are transparent. So you'd think all these things would lead to terrible employee retention, but it works in some twisted way because everyone knows there's some decisions happening in a closed door. But if you're not going to ever be at that level or don't aim to be in that level, you don't know what those conversations are. So trying to strip away the illusion or the magic of what happens in a meeting, I'm rambling, but we just keep trying. We don't stop. We keep trying, and we care deeply about being good stewards of what we have and how we are servants to a greater cause and a greater calling to be good, ethical business people.
You're not rambling. You're making perfect sense to me. You're not. You're making perfect sense to me. And so, I'll say, to play off of that, I think that There's something I talk about a lot. It's amazing how many executives I speak to that have never heard of something called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. It's been around for quite some time. Everyone around this table knows it. It's really just a system of accountability. And a lot of founders like you that hadn't built a business before, you didn't come up in an environment, like I learned EOS because I worked at Eaton when I was first a manager, and their business system was a derivative of Danaher business system, which is the origin of what are called the Rockefeller habits. This is what scaling up for Haddish, this is what EOS is based on. It's like, and it's also based off of really Robert Fritz's work, right, from 1984 in terms of structural tension resolution, which is what is the desired state? Where's the current state? What is reality? With the time, talent, and money that I have, how are we going to prioritize to achieve these things? So I think the first thing is clarity of what we're moving to. Where are we today grounded in reality? And now we have to make a series of trade-off decisions, right, based off of the resources available to us. So you paint this picture, right, and then you start to assign accountability, then you start to track. The key to high-performance organizations that really, really get this, in my opinion, is to do this well, you must keep score. So when you start to do this initially in your organization, you're going to have a lot of attrition in many cases. Why? Those that don't like a scoreboard are going to leave. This is the really critical thing, people. Let them go. Right? You go ahead.
So we have a high employee retention, but we don't publicize it because if someone's not the right fit, we aren't going to shame a manager because of the retention rate. Like obviously senior leadership knows what our employee retention is, but the rest of the company, we don't lead with that because we want the right people on the bus, right? Otherwise you don't get anywhere.
Yeah, you guys are making some incredible points here, and I could go for hours on this one too, but I'll make a couple quick points. First of all, part of it, I think the 3 C's ultimately integrate. It's tough to separate those 3 C's, so I'll touch on a few of them simultaneously here. You know, as a CEO, you have to articulate a vision for the organization. And in healthcare, we have a tendency to speak in really complex business terms, and we apply acronyms to all of them. So we'll throw, 3 letters out at somebody, well, what are you talking about? So the first thing you have to do is, it's not dumbing it down, because we had, at Children's Mercy, just an example, 9,000 extremely intelligent people. So it's not about dumbing it down, but it's about making it understandable. Where are we going? Why are we going there? How are we going to get there? What is your role in that journey, and how are we going to measure success? But when you're in a large, complex organization, the cascading of that messaging is not just reliant upon the CEO, it's reliant upon hundreds of leaders and managers who have to be singing off the same sheet of music, but in an authentic, humble, and accurate way, and inviting the feedback and the input from those who are experiencing all of these changes. So I think that is really complex communication work, but it involves clarity, consistency, reliability, and authenticity. The other thing, and I think maybe Seth touched on it here, is type A leaders, as Mackie was referring to, and I'm one of them, have a tendency to want to get a lot of things done. You realize, what the potential of the organization is, and patients are relying upon it. We've got to get a lot of things done, therefore, we would have a lot of initiatives. One of the things I learned as a leader is the capacity of the organization to execute successfully on X number of initiatives was simply not possible. And we had to focus, and it was a learning for me, on prioritize what are the most important things that are going to ultimately impact our mission and the impact on the patients and families we serve. What are we going to focus on there and execute successfully, and being very authentic on what we're saying no to right now. what we are going to say no, not now, later, we'll reconsider at a later date, and hang that stuff on a wall and be very transparent about it. Once we started doing that, the ability for leaders and managers to communicate where we're going and how we're going to get there and engage people in the process of executing on that journey became much better. But that was a learning for me as somebody who was used to being in rapid fire organizations that did a lot of things simultaneously, some of which were successful, some of which were not, and understanding the culture of the organization you're in and the capacity for successful execution. Always keeping the child and the family in mind, and the ability for the team members to feel valued, engaged, and well as they were going through that journey.
Oh, and you can start with the first one. But feel free to touch on clarity, communication, and weight capacity. Yes.
Oh, we're just going to give me the assignment. aren't we?
Yes, because I would love your take, because your background is so different from everyone.
Well,
And you
I
come
was-
from the holistic side, and it's a side that I struggle. I had Bell palsy where half of my face was paralyzed.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened to me, by the way. So I'll do my best not to just share everything
Yes,
tonight.
well, we talked about how you had a little twitch in your eye when you did the podcast. and I
Actually,
was like,
all
"You need a
night my
massage."
eyes been twitching. So
No, I wanted to start off by saying how grateful I am to be here, because I genuinely, sometimes you get that feeling of, what am I doing sitting here with such great people, And I believe that I am in a good place where we are such a baby company, that a baby business, that I can take this, apply it, and see what it can turn into to have a healthy beginning to a business versus watching it become something and then trying to fix it. So with the clarity right now, and you're reminding me to pick up the book Traction again, because I was like, oh, I need to get that again. But with the clarity that I try to focus on, I just focus on why I started building the studios. It's to teach business mindset to massage therapists, and I just have to remember that, because there's people that'll come in, love the studio, and give a bunch of ideas, and I need to step away from being not a people pleaser, but someone that's accommodating. So I need to remember to not be so accommodating, stay focused on that, take everything that I'm learning, and something that I've always worked with in my own private practice and in my own world, and what we're applying at the studios, is knowledge, application, results. So you learn something, you apply it, and you get the results. Do you like the results? Yes, no? Well, then go back and learn something else. So I'm learning all this. I'm going to apply it and check in a few months and see how I'm doing. But that's clarity. What was the next one?
communication.
Communication.
So capacity.
Communication. That one, I think I learned a lot, not just being in a relationship, especially in a marriage where we actually went through therapy, and it's amazing when you go through couples therapy and you learn how to communicate, you can apply that in all aspects of your life. You don't go in talking to someone. So whenever I have to communicate with someone, I don't think about what I need to vent to them, and I want to make sure that they understand how they hurt my feelings and what they did. I go in thinking, what is the goal of the conversation, and what is the outcome I would like, and what is a possible outcome that it could become. So I try to play that in plan before, so that I don't go into a big, well, you did this, you did that, and this happened, and that happened, and my feelings, and all these things. It's just, what's the goal of the conversation? Right. So that's the communication. Same thing with when I work with clients or massage therapists. And also, putting a timestamp on the conversation, because it can go on for way too long. So that's one thing I learned with the intake with clients, because you walk in, I've been in the massage industry for 17 years, and you only have 1 hour to work with the person and a little wiggle room in between. But you have to try to get as much information from that client to create a session that's remarkable for them. So what I do is I just go in, I make sure I ask the correct questions and listen, which is the biggest part of communication, is listening, and then walk them through what I will be doing to help the muscles relax, or if you're talking with a massage therapist, these are the steps I will be taking to help you hit your goal. What will you be doing to help hit your goal? That type of deal. So setting a clear goal would be for the communication and a timestamp.
And finally, capacity.
Capacity. Can you define that one again for me, please?
Yeah, so for me, like capacity was not knowing when my team was completely burnt out. And I'm just forcing them to do more work. I had multiple projects happening at the same time at any given moment. We were working on something new, which was, my ADHD was just wanting to do every project that came to the table. So again, the team was completely burned out. I was having Bell palsy.
Yes.
Half of my face was drooling for 3 months.
Yes.
But I still wanted to do, get the job done.
Okay, yes. So for capacity, I have two things that taught me not to overdo it. Less is more. Is when we come out of school, we're taught a lot of techniques or modalities, and you go in wanting to apply all of them, and then you end up with a hot mess massage that really didn't get any results. So taking the tools that are needed, using those for that situation, and then getting, the result that you want. So not trying to do everything at once is something that helps. So to get a very, it's just, I guess sitting down and making sure what is the most important thing, and then the next most important thing, and what can we do without, is probably my best answer that I can give for now. So just because you have all these tools doesn't mean throw it all on one project and then boom, it's going to come out. Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I wish I knew all that. I would have avoided Bell palsy, and which I don't recommend. It's not the greatest thing to have your mouth drooling constantly. But yeah, so things like this happen. I know we are running out of time. I would love for you two to also touch on communication and capacity before we wrap here.
So these are more just, me, I'm a basketball coach and a teacher at heart. So I think I'll just share some lessons for anyone out there listening that's young and new to all this. For me, I'd say that my personal capacity, because I can absorb so much pain, is likely it's pretty high. Mm-hmm. So as a young leader, I would think that everyone should be able to keep pace with me. That is not a fair expectation, and that capacity was also driven by trauma. Right. So, I think you have to really understand what is the organizational capacity. You've got to find a way to channel yours in other ways. You cannot bring that, because that could be disruptive capacity into the organization. Communication, the other thing for me is, even though I missed just about 2 years of school as a child, I was blessed with an intellect and a grit. And I ended up studying war studies, and my undergraduate thesis was in Nash theory, in escalation theory. And so complex situations, all these things. And so I learned really how to map back with detailed multivariate analysis. And what I always felt necessary to communicate to my team was they'd want to understand how did I go from here to there? And boy, I'd get them on the whiteboard for 2 hours and show them every single thing I had considered, and like they don't have the capacity for that. They don't need to know that. I learned over time to go into the lab by myself. And there are just a few people in my ecosystem that are allowed in the lab with me, where I can tell them everything I'm thinking. And they actually don't need to know it because they trust my instincts as a leader, but they know that I need to release it. I need to verbalize it. So then when I go into the organization, now I just tell them where we're going and how we're going to get there and the sequence of events. But I used to play that out publicly, and that was not healthy. And so I had to learn how to manage that and contain it because the organization needs simplicity and clarity. So I had to change how I communicated.
I love that. So I'm a verbal processor, which is terrible to work with if I'm leading or supposed to be setting a direction. So I label things now. I'm processing. I haven't formed a decision. This is just talking it out so that we can land on a direction. When I think of different times when organizations or even my family has been highly effective, it's because communication and capacity aligned. I think capacity is boundless if you have good communication. I think back of when I had 3 kids under 4 and my husband and I were both working. We were growing the business was growing and needed so much. And I don't know how we did it, but we did. But we knew what we were doing and we knew where we were going. And it's amazing when you align those things, your team's capacity changes. When there's clarity, here's why you're playing this role, here's why we're running this way. So you can't really have capacity without good communication. And sometimes good communication is hard to figure out what are those magic words that your team needs to hear in order for them to feel engaged in what's happening.
Perhaps could I add
Go
one
ahead.
more? I think it's been such a rich conversation here. I think the one thing that we didn't speak about was the need to ask for feedback. So when we are communicating, when we are engaging our teams and the organization, asking for feedback on what somebody heard, how they processed it, how they responded to it is really, really important. There have been many, many times as a leader where I thought I did a great job of communicating a program, a strategy, a decision, whatever it is, and I asked somebody, well, how did that work for you? And what they told me they heard was a 180 from what I intended to articulate. So the importance of having those folks, in some cases formally, those are those people that may not have a leadership title, but are very influential in the organization. How did that play in Peoria, right? What did you hear? To ask for that feedback, and that will help you to be able to go back and reinforce key themes, because when you've heard something once, you've heard it once. And the cliche is 7 times 7 ways. Everybody learns differently. Some people learn verbally, some people learn by doing, the whole story there. So it's really important to seek feedback on the clarity of the communication and how that is amalgamating into the capacity of the organization.
I think it's super interesting. So when I go into a new department, so I worked in every department in our company, all different lines of business, so business insurance, health insurance, and then surety. And then we sold personal lines. But I'd go in and ask, what would you change? What would you keep? And it was so simple, but the feedback really created a great, rich foundation. And it's the basics, you forget about the basics as you get more comfortable with your team, and it's so needed.
Oh, and another part to feedback is that as a leader, sometimes someone may say, go see a therapist, and that's completely fine. Don't fire them. That person is probably your best employee. The fact that they took the leap of faith, risked their career. And again, I was thinking all that. I was like, who the heck is this? And then, Jamie, how dare you, Jamie? Told me to go see a therapist. But yeah, it was the best thing that happened to me. I know we're running out of time, and I want to just throw a closing question out there, which you all are very familiar with, so feel free to share. Basically everything that happened tonight, all the conversations you've had, all the handshakes that you've had here tonight, and after everything that we've talked about, I want to know, how is your spirit right now? And we can start from you.
Oh, my spirit right now is in a place of gratitude. It started since Monday. I don't know what's been going on, but leading up to everything I've learned today, from the first panel to what I'm learning at this table, I really do feel very blessed. So I'm in a place of gratitude right now. I felt it in my heart so much so, and this is funny because my husband's like, "What are you talking about?" You get that teary-eyed where you're just so happy, So that kind of happened to me a couple of times this week, and I love it. So I enjoy it because I prefer that teary-eyed versus, why isn't anything going right? So it's almost like, because we opened up these studios We started renovating on it a year ago, and today, part of the ways that I would keep myself going when everything was going wrong and you just wanted to quit was imagining and envisioning what the studio was going to be. And today I got to see that. Today I saw Ren, Amy, the two Amys, Anjane and myself sitting there working together, figuring things out, some doing massage, me prepping for this, and Anjane helping me, and it was just beautiful. So that's where I said, oh my God, I think it's working. So, so I think I want to remember that as the business grows, always take time to be grateful for those moments that it's working, and take those for the days that it's not working, but it will later, that type of deal. So my spirit's in a place of gratitude.
Thank you.
I'll be honest, because that's our relationship, and I think it's a duty. I'm very grateful to be here. I should not be here. I flew in from California. Tomorrow I have to go to another city. The day after that, another city. On November 1st, I launch a new website, a new brand, a new business system, 2 books, an investment bank, and a private equity fund. Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. So, but it's important to me to share, and whenever you call and ask for something, I will come.
Thank you.
And so, thank you for doing this. But I just want to let people know that because you asked, I wanted to give this forum is to be honest. So that's the honest answer.
Thank you.
I'm thankful for the opportunity to learn from everyone. This was really fun. I'm a third generation business owner, and I'm just feeling really excited for our next iteration, and it's starting to feel contagious in a way that I'm really looking forward to getting back to work with some wonderful people.
Yeah, I came in here with a green chip because, well, I'm retired, and I feel I'm so glad you brought up gratefulness and gratitude, because I think, again, I feel a sense of gratefulness and gratitude for a 42-year career that had its ups and downs. I learned more from the downs than I did the ups. But this year has been incredible. Yes, I've retired. I've started my small consulting practice doing executive coaching and some board and advisory work. But more importantly, my 2 girls, I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. Both of the girls got married, one in April, one 2 weeks ago. We have a blessed life, and I never take that for granted. And, my faith is the epicenter of my life. And, I always turn to that in times of trouble, but I always make sure I express gratitude when things are going very well. Tonight was amazing. I've met so many people that I didn't know. Most of the people in this room. So I had some amazing conversations with people and learned about people's lives. And as I get to know you more, it's just an honor to partner with you and to learn from the great people around this table and in the audience. So I came in green, and I'm leaving greener. So, so thanks for the opportunity.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to hear that. And thanks to my wife, because she's the one who has been holding all this together. I just show up in my fedora. So thank you. With the food, the design, all that. And again, thank you all so much for coming out, and thanks for to the panel for being honest and just sharing your truth with us. I genuinely value it. As someone who make a lot of mistakes, I'm always seeking out advice, and that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, because my goal was to retire at 40, but the closer I was getting to 40, the more mistakes I was making. And I was like, I know I'm good at what I do, but why do I keep making these mistakes? So I keep having these one-on-one conversations, and the more I'm realizing, maybe it's time to put the fedora down. Okay, I make a lot of fedora jokes, but yeah, the more I talk to the people on this podcast, the more I learn that the fun is not in how much money, how many clients you talk to, but it's the fun is in the process, the conversations that we have every day, the people that we talk to. That's why I had all of us do the connection like exercise. I want to have everyone go home today and talk to someone that you haven't talked to in a very long time. This is something that I try to practice. I don't promise I will respond, but I do my best to talk to as many people that I don't talk to anymore, but they're good friends of mine. Again, thank you all for coming out. Again, if you want to be on the podcast, there should be a QR code on the flyer. Register. I would love to talk to you. And again, thank you. I'm going to say this over and over again, but thank you all.